Welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's just dive right into a massive, frankly inexplicable corporate failure that holds a direct, urgent warning for the very projects you're probably working on today. We're looking at a case study that might seem like a piece of retail history, but I promise you, it's essentially a crystal ball for the future of automated workflows.
Picture this. You're the second largest discount retailer in the United States, right? Your supply chain is famous for being incredibly sophisticated. So you decide to expand into a neighboring country where consumers already know and love your brand. And the best part? You have this ready-made pipeline of 124 physical store locations with eager customers practically banging down the doors. Leadership is confidently projecting 6 billion Canadian dollars in revenue for just the first full year. Success seems absolutely inevitable.
Yet, it ends with a staggering $2 billion completely written off. In January 2015, the company filed for creditor protection. All 124 stores began the agonizing process of closure, and over 17,600 employees were laid off. It was just a total, unmitigated financial disaster. And you know what the most shocking part is? This complete corporate collapse happened in just 22 short months. Less than 2 years from the grand opening to creditor protection. So the crucial point we need to figure out is what exactly killed this massive expansion. The public narrative at the time blamed the Canadian economy, or fierce local competition, or even just the complexity of a new market. But a forensic investigation revealed the truth was actually hiding right there in plain sight. It wasn't the market at all, and it definitely wasn't the competition.
Part 1. The spreadsheet that killed Target.
We really have to treat this like a forensic investigation and look at the actual evidence, which is, crazily enough, a simple, unvalidated spreadsheet. The entire failure came down to what was inside those cells, and more importantly, what the organization failed to do before they started relying on them. To understand this, you got to realize that entering this new market meant loading an entirely new product catalog into a highly sophisticated SAP-based supply chain system. We're talking somewhere between 75,000 and 80,000 individual products, or SKUs, that needed their exact dimensions, weights, and packaging quantities entered. Target confidently handed off this massive data entry task to their external vendors. They basically just sent out spreadsheet templates. The vendors filled them out, and that data went straight into the live system. But here is the absolute fatal flaw. They never bothered to set up a systematic validation process first.
Look at how ridiculously mundane these errors were. You had vendors systematically typing centimeters instead of inches. They entered completely arbitrary weight values. And critically, they messed up the case pack quantity, meaning they'd write down that a shipping case contained 30 units when it actually only contained 12. Now, in a spreadsheet, writing 30 instead of 12 doesn't trigger any flashing red alarms. It just looks like a normal number. But when an automated supply chain system uses that number to calculate how much physical space a product needs, well, disaster strikes.
Part 2. The empty shelf paradox. These tiny little spreadsheet errors immediately manifested in the real world as a massive, highly visible retail paradox. Once the stores opened, Canadian shoppers noticed it right away. Furious customers were constantly facing empty shelves, while out of sight, the store backrooms were literally bursting with misallocated stock. The promised brand experience was entirely broken. Shoppers couldn't buy what they needed, but the physical products were actually right there in the building. They just physically couldn't be placed on the shelves correctly. The tragic irony here, the technology wasn't broken at all. The automated system was doing exactly what it was told. But because it was fed incorrect dimensions and case pack quantities, it ordered products that physically wouldn't fit on the shelves. It would order stock for shelves it falsely believed were empty, creating massive overstock in all the completely wrong places. The system was flawlessly executing on terrible data.
Part 3. The governance root cause.
Now, you might be thinking, surely someone noticed this, right? Well, internal employees actually flagged this data disaster well before the stores fully launched. People working deep inside the supply chain function surfaced the problem way back in 2013. But despite those early warnings, the train just kept moving. It actually took 18 months and a complete leadership change for the new CEO, Mark Schindler, to formally acknowledge internally that the underlying product data was, in his exact words, dirty to a level that was impossible to work with. Imagine trying to run 124 massive retail stores on data that is fundamentally impossible to use. By that point, the financial trajectory was entirely unsalvageable. The attempt to fix 75,000 product records while simultaneously running a massive retail operation just couldn't happen fast enough. The result was a 94.1 million Canadian dollar loss in the very first full year. That is a staggering loss ratio of roughly 72 cents on every single dollar of revenue. Let's do a quick 5 whys root cause autopsy here. We can trace this failure all the way down. Why did they fail? Step 1. Shelves wouldn't stock properly. Why? Step 2. The replenishment system produced the wrong orders. Why? Step 3. The vendor data was incorrect. Why? Step 4. It was never validated before going live. And finally, the ultimate why. Step 5. The launch date timeline was a fixed constraint and data quality was treated as a parallel workstream. The schedule was treated as totally non-negotiable, and data quality was just this afterthought they figured they'd fix on the fly. The team knew about the iceberg dead ahead, but the project's governance structure gave them no steering wheel and absolutely no authority to halt the launch schedule. This wasn't really a technology failure, and it wasn't just vendor negligence. It was a pure governance failure. The organizational decision to treat data validation as a parallel task rather than a mandatory prerequisite. Part 4. Why AI will fail faster. So here is the major twist. This isn't just a story about a 2015 retail blunder. This brings us to an urgent, flashing red warning for the AI workflows you're deploying today in 2026. Because the exact same dynamics are playing out right now, but with much, much higher stakes. According to the McKinsey State of Organizations 2026 report, while 91% of organizations have deployed AI in at least one function, a staggering 94% of them report seeing no significant value from those deployments. While companies love to blame change management or technology selection, the core underlying variable is almost always unvalidated data quality. Furthermore, Gartner projects that almost half, 40%, of all agent AI projects, those AI systems designed to take actions entirely on their own, will be canceled by the end of 2027. The primary reasons? Scope creep and insufficient governance guardrails. In other words, the exact same lack of authority and validation that Target suffered from over a decade ago. This is where the structural difference gets absolutely terrifying. Target Canada had 75,000 records, and it took 18 months for those errors to sink the company. Modern AI systems process millions of records per second. They make the exact same confident mistakes as Target's automated supply chain, acting flawlessly on terrible data, but at a speed and scale that causes irreversible downstream damage instantly. And AI won't just leave a shelf empty. No, it will execute 1 million bad financial trades, send out 100,000 incorrect contracts, or completely corrupt a customer database before you even realize the underlying data was recorded in centimeters instead of inches. Part 5. The Data Quality Gate. So how do we reframe our approach to prevent your AI deployment from becoming the next $2 billion catastrophe? Well, we have to completely change the governance structure. You must implement what is called a strict data quality gate. This means data quality is an operational precondition, not a parallel IT task you just figure out later. You need to define specific measurable metrics for what clean data actually looks like. And most importantly, you must assign an authorized individual the explicit power to halt the launch, meaning the deployment schedule has to be capable of being delayed. Absolutely nothing goes live until the underlying data is proven clean. I want to leave you with this ultimate test for your very next project meeting. I want you to look around the room and ask, who on this team can delay this launch if the data quality isn't cleared? If no one can answer this question, or if the answer is no one, then your AI deployment is already walking down the exact same path as Target Canada. You are building a flawless machine on top of broken data. Target paid $2 billion for this lesson. Let's make sure you don't have to.